This week in the business of tech, quiet quitting. Want to know what CISOs make? New interest in apprenticeships, deep fake voice scams, an analysis of remote work and the rise of the worker productivity score, and ditching cyber insurance is a growing trend, so how are companies addressing it? All these stories and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification button and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. Quiet quitting. I've seen this mentioned in several outlets, and so I dug in further. It's the idea of doing just enough work to avoid getting fired, and it's having a moment. It's not actually quitting, it's just not taking your job too seriously. Stay on the payroll, but focus your time on the things you do outside the office. I noted it in the Wall Street Journal, Axios, and The Hustle. Some data, in Gallup's latest polling on worker engagement, just 31% of workers born after 1989, Gen Z and younger millennials, say they're engaged at work. And they're far less likely than their older counterparts to feel their work has a purpose. Why do we care? Or, told another way, a bunch of workers are celebrating, not overworking. I could easily interpret this as a very healthy outlook on life. You don't have to overwork yourself, and ensure you do have a healthy life outside the office. The recurring theme of young workers don't want to work has cropped up a lot throughout history. This sounds a lot like that. My take? Focus instead on building roles that employees want to have, with compensation that reflects their talents, and build a sustainable org. A little less blame workers goes a long way. In data released last week, the median cash compensation for Chief Information Security Officers rose 15% this year, reaching $584,000, up from $509,000 in 2021, according to the CISO survey from executive search firm Hendrick & Struggles. Median total compensation is up too, reaching $971,000 this year from $936,000 last year, when factoring in long-term incentives. And there are vast differences across geographies and industries. Median total compensation is highest for CISOs in the technology and telecommunications or financial services sector. It is also highest for CISOs on the West Coast or Mid-Atlantic. Why do we care? If you're offering outsourced security services, understanding the internal salaries of these roles is critical. The CISO role is very challenging and highly compensated. A small provider is not going to recreate that by using entry-level engineers. You're not going to get away with using your mid or tier 3 network engineers to make up for this talent level either. That reality check speaks volumes. So, is ransomware down? The Washington Post examines the possible head fake that recent data might be presenting. As recent tallies have shown a decline, have they really? The data. Last month, the Ransomware Task Force documented 64 attacks on local government, hospitals, and schools in 2022 to that point, compared with 150 incidents from the same period last year. SonicWall, NCC Group, and GuidePoint Security also noted decreases, although Avast has data showing it up for the quarter, but down for the year. But it could be how the analysis is done. The data is pulled from ransomware gangs' leak sites, which they're now using less, plus new tactics that don't require locking entire networks. And on top of that, it could just be that smaller victims don't report. Why do we care? As a confessed data nerd, this analysis spoke to me. I'm watching trends less than specific data points, and slight declines in the number of reported incidents are not the story. The change of tactics and the lack of reporting are the main stories. We're getting less insight, not more, and are a long way from a solution. If we want more accurate data, we can't rely on the criminals. Instead, we need to create safety for victims to report. Something that felt incredibly relevant to IT services companies crossed my desk: coverage of the growing interest in apprenticeships. It's seen growth in the technology space over the past few years, and Axios looks at the startup multiverse in the news. The concept? Running paid apprenticeship programs in partnership with major companies. Multiverse is now working with more than 500 companies and organizations. And this relates to recent pushes from the Department of Labor, which has included an apprenticeship ambassador program and a 120-day cybersecurity apprenticeship sprint. Even recently, CompTIA and ConnectWise partnered to launch a training program for cybersecurity and technology workers via apprenticeship. Want numbers? The Labor Department notes that more than 241,000 people began a registered apprenticeship last year, a 9% increase from the prior year. Notable, that's still not back to pre-pandemic numbers. Why do we care? I brought on a paid apprentice via a sponsored program in my MSP. Great decision, and often undervalued broadly. There's a temptation, particularly among small companies, to hire only for specific needs due to the perceived tightness of expense management. That can be a mistake, and the numbers show strikingly high retention levels for apprentices. And there's now investment being made in the programs to take advantage of. So remember that 2023 National Defense Authorization Bill? There's a key provision in it. Vendors can't sell software to the DOD that has any known CVEs. At least, that's how some are interpreting it. It's driving a discussion in the security community, as covered in CyberScoop. Quoting the piece. The debate boils down to two key arguments. The requirement is unnecessary and impossible to achieve, or a game-changing move that will begin holding software vendors accountable for selling faulty technology. The Biden administration is on the side of holding software vendors responsible for making sure their goods don't contain known common vulnerabilities and exposures, or CVEs. The software industry should emulate the automotive industry, where, quote, manufacturers retain ownership and responsibility through the life of the vehicle, said Ann Neuberger, Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber and Emerging Technology. Quote, the model in tech for too long has been that it's the user's responsibility to patch devices and systems and to recover from an incident where a vulnerability is exploited. And that model needs to change, Neuberger told CyberScoop in an interview on Friday. That certainly includes patching critical CVEs before a product is sold and maintaining visibility of new CVEs and responsibility for them. Why do we care? In the something has to change bucket, the government uses its buying power to enact change. While I worry about new incentives not to report issues to ensure the software can continue to be sold, I'm inclined to favor less tolerance of issues by purchasers. Putting financial incentives around repairing issues changes behavior. Making it a buying criterion, at least, brings it to light. Did you know Cisco helps managed services providers directly? Know about the Cisco Partner Program? Focused on helping partners combine managed services expertise and service creation with innovative Cisco technology and proven go-to-market resources. There's a program option for you. With provider pricing, MDF, and marketing resources, coupled with Cisco's leading technologies including Meraki, Duo, and Umbrella, learn more with the link right in the show notes. While I'm on security, Protocol highlights the new use of deep fake audio for phishing attacks. Fake bosses using fabricated audio to infiltrate the organization. And the more significant warning, what's next is cloned voices in real time. This isn't hypothetical. Specific cases of attacks are being noted by researchers. Why do we care? More evidence of the need for training among staff. A healthy dose of skepticism from employees goes a long way to ensuring a business isn't conned. This is a technology-enabled con, yet still a con, and both process and training reduce the risk. Oh, and obviously, an opportunity to deliver those training services. The Washington Post offers some analysis of remote work. After acknowledging the data finding that balance that roughly 1/3 of work is being done remotely in 2021 and 2022, experts expect this to remain constant. Quoting the piece, in particular, the remote work wave has roiled the so-called knowledge industries, such as finance and information, a category that includes everything from journalists to search engine developers. Within each industry, certain classes of jobs are more likely to be done remotely. For example, managers in most industries work from home more often than the people who report to them. And further, this additional passage. The data hints that the real remote revolution is taking place not at tech giants, but at firms like the Inside Out Company, an Illinois construction, roofing, and painting outfit that has found it provides a competitive advantage. Inside Out had never considered a hybrid or remote model for the 40-plus back office employees in its Botvia headquarters. But when the pandemic hit, the company adapted, jettisoning cumbersome workflows that required staff to pass files around the office and adopting a streamlined cloud provider. Management learned to work with employees' schedules and childcare needs and didn't lose a single worker to the Great Resignation. Now, said Christine Allen Mortimer, the firm's chief financial officer, they've seized on that newfound flexibility to take on projects from Florida to Tennessee. A business that just 2 years ago was hyper-focused on the Chicago area now would see no problem hiring back-office personnel who could work remotely from anywhere in the country. For those wanting to go deeper, the data within the article breaks down the geographic distribution of remote workers. I'm going to pair this with 2 other articles. First, a piece in the New York Times dives into the rise of the worker productivity score. Not a new concept, the idea of monitoring workers is implemented in 8 of the 10 largest private U.S. employers, and now it's moving into white-collar jobs. Quote, architects, academic administrators, doctors, nursing home workers, and lawyers described growing electronic surveillance over every minute of their workday. They echoed complaints that employees in many lower-paid positions have voiced for years, that their jobs are relentless, that they don't have control, and in some cases, that they don't even have enough time to use the bathroom. And TechIsle's data from their recent survey. 93% of SMBs have prioritized remote and hybrid workplace technology solution adoption. 58% of employees in the SMB segment are likely to work remotely. 79% of SMBs are prioritizing cloud-based communication and collaboration solutions, which shows evolving recognition of the value of cloud calling and collaboration. And amidst all that, remember Apple's push to bring everyone back to the office on a schedule? Employees are pushing back, publicly, with a petition online noting the exceptional work being done from home. Why do we care? The data goes last because that tells you what you need to know. Those companies fighting it make good stories, but it's a losing battle. Those that embrace the flexibility and the benefits it offers are the companies we will see surge ahead. I highlighted the worker productivity score because I believe those companies will be struggling more and more. Anyone can already see that in the struggles of those who hire and retain blue-collar workers, Great Resignation anyone, and those adopting these monitoring ideas will bring that suffering to their offices. I'm not shaking my fists at the clouds here, instead observing the space for those who embrace the challenge of that more complex work. I'm not saying it's easy, it would be commodity otherwise, and that's a feature, not a bug. The headline from The Information: companies are ditching cybersecurity insurance as premiums rise, coverage shrinks. Last year, cyber insurance premiums spiked by 74%, and so per this analysis, a number of large firms are not renewing it. The replacement? Their own insurance. Large companies and some governments are setting up a captive insurer, an arrangement in which a company issues its own capital to create an insurer whose only customer is the company. Meanwhile, a new type of hypothetical attack is data manipulation. Quoting this piece, data tampering represents a different type of threat, and one that could be potentially even more serious for certain organizations, depending on the situation. And yet, it's not on the radar for many businesses, experts told Protocol, due to the fact that few such attacks have occurred and come to light. And this passage, technologies for protecting against data integrity attacks include file integrity monitoring services for detecting file changes, which can be used in combination with logging and backups to secure against such threats from external attackers or malicious insiders, the National Institute of Standards and Technology noted in a 2020 report. Meanwhile, Microsoft analyzed anonymized data of actual threat activity, and according to the company's new Cyber Signals report, found that over 80% of ransomware attacks can be traced to common configuration errors in software and devices. These include applications being left in their default state, allowing user-wide access across the network, security tools being left untested or misconfigured, cloud applications set up in a way that can quickly enable unauthorized intruders to gain access, and organizations not applying Microsoft's attack surface reduction rules, which allows attackers to run malicious code using macros and scripts. That thanks to ZDNet. All of this is top of mind. PwC's Pulse survey just out notes that 40% of top business executives consider cyber attack risk their top concern, followed by talent acquisition at 38%. Why do we care? Big companies have the option to insure themselves, and small ones don't. I highlight this change in strategy to observe those small companies, and the providers who serve them will need another approach here. Disaster recovery services to the rescue doesn't necessarily mean technology ones. They can well be procedural. Because you'll need them if you ponder the potential of hackers altering your data. That's scary, although offset by the fact that so many of the items listed by Microsoft are just the basics. And building on that PwC talent acquisition concern, that same PwC survey shows 50% of responding businesses are planning layoffs in the coming months, including technology, media, and telecom companies. From Channel Futures. Executives now see the distinction between merely having people and having people with the right skills. Therefore, 1/2 of all respondents are reducing their overall headcount. Furthermore, 46% are dropping or reducing signing bonuses, and 44% are rescinding offers. Finding the right talent continues to be a challenge for business leaders, according to PwC. Talent acquisition came in second as a risk behind cyber, with 38% of respondents citing it as a serious risk. Although with all that, 83% of executives are focusing their business strategy on growth. According to the survey, business leaders are feeling cautiously optimistic about their ability to navigate future economic, social, and geopolitical uncertainty. Why do we care? There's a weird tension here. These companies are focusing on growth, acknowledging they probably hired the wrong people and weren't very good at keeping focused. Or said another way, they were actively bad at their jobs. Executives, this is literally your job, and this data speaks to being actively bad at it. The reason to focus here is to be dismissive of this noise for small companies, which generally hire deliberately. The subtle observation is that this isn't necessarily a skill in SMB. It should be, because focusing on being a good team builder will pay off. I will make my last story before time off a fun one. Quoting Bleeping Computer. Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation music video of 1989 has officially been declared a security vulnerability as it freezes some models of hard drives on older computers. Assigned CVE 2022-38392, the vulnerability we're talking about is a denial of service attack, specifically a side channel attack that caused hard drives of some laptop PCs from 2005 to malfunction and crash. And it's to do with the physical phenomenon known as resonance. Why do we care? Well, we don't necessarily, but I couldn't resist a fun security story among all the gloom. Enjoy that one for the pure joy that it is.
Thanks for your time and attention. Time is a finite resource, and I really value you giving me some of yours. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSPradio. It's our give what you want model where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this podcast, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary show, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue button to subscribe. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all that, and I look forward to talking to you next time.